Wow.
Because I was thinking in terms of like, what's the income of a 26 to 26.75 GM now versus 8 to 10 years ago, and has it changed? And the one thing that I thought of was maybe some of them are making a lot of money on chessable courses. That was like the one thing I thought of as that could be like an obvious change or advantage.
Yeah, I mean, I think for some, I think some do. I think much like most parts of the chess content experience of Boom, whether it's Twitch, YouTube, or Chessable, or even on chess.com for that matter, is that I think some of the very top ones do very well, but I think as a whole, it doesn't really filter down the way that you would expect it to. I mean, obviously, I don't have the actual numbers, but I don't believe that it filters down as much as people assume it does. So I think they can make some income, but I think, for example, I think Anish Giri, I suspect he does quite well. But I think for a lot of people, if they don't have sort of a social media profile or big visibility, they're not doing as well off of it as one would assume. And that's also why I think for the players who are in that range, it's very difficult, because do you want to make those courses? Do you want to sort of like try and stream? Do you want to go down these routes? Because this is really the only way that chess has changed substantially, is that the ways that you can monetize are purely on social media.
Yeah, we were just talking before the stream about how whether we've made enough with Dojo, or if we could have just been like teaching private lessons, these last like 3.5 years and made more that way. But I don't know. I feel like there's a ton of potential with streaming. The nice thing about courses is like once you've done one, you put it out, it's up forever, and then it can always go up in popularity later on. I feel like these guys, they should be doing non-opening courses, stuff that's just more, it's going to like last a long time on like general principles and stuff.
Well, I mean, I can give you one little bit of insight, one little secret then, I guess, which is, one of the things that makes both Levy and myself so successful on YouTube is the sheer volume of videos that we've created over the last couple of years. And then the number of videos that are very, very relevant, whether it's like tier lists or just general opening principles and analysis. When you have like a massive volume or massive collection like that, and it's not purely it's something that reaches to the entire audience of chess. There are videos of mine that on YouTube sometimes do go viral like a year and a half or 2 years later after they've been published. So that is something that's really, really important down the road. But I think also just from my personal story, obviously I was in the right place at the right time. I had started streaming very seriously in 2019 before the whole pandemic. But I think that even for me, when I started out doing it, obviously a lot of it was luck. But I also was doing it because I enjoyed it. I wasn't doing it to try and make money. I think anytime you approach something with the attitude that you have to make money, it detracts. And I would say for almost all the people who've made it big in streaming or content creation, I don't think any of them went into it with this expectation of like making lots and lots of money, being hugely successful. They did it mostly for fun, something that they did because they enjoyed it, and then it became something bigger. So I do think when it comes to trying to build a platform on social media, you have to do it for reasons that are not purely monetary, because or they're not just monetary reasons. It has to be something. There has to be something more to it. So I do think that a lot of the one thing that a lot of people also don't realize is that viewers. I mean, we like to make the joke like everybody's watching who's like 10 years old or 8 years old or whatever. It's just a bunch of kids. Nobody's serious, blah, blah, blah. But I think that at the end of the day, viewers are actually very smart, and they can see when the streamers are being genuine and when they aren't being genuine, or like their motivations aren't for the right reasons. And I think that also is very important. A lot of people don't really understand that.
Yeah, definitely. You got to enjoy the streaming. Otherwise, it wouldn't work.
So Jesse and Kostya, you guys have each published courses on Chessable. If you can speak about it freely, like how do you feel about like how much you basically earn from that compared to other ways of earning money as a chess player? Like, do you feel like it went well? Did you feel like you got a taste of the chess boom?
I mean, it's fine. It wasn't huge money or anything. It's also like a real pain. It's a pain to create those courses. It's a very bureaucratic process. Chessable, man, they got all these things that they want you to do. So it was a real struggle to actually get both of those courses published. And I think me and Costa made a little money, but it wasn't extravagant or anything,
I would say no. My course has done well. I mean, I did a course on endgame studies, and definitely. I don't think I could have sold that to any top players. Like, hey, do you want some of my endgame study? But But Chessable has been very nice to me. Like they've definitely done their share of like promoting the course. And I'm sure they've promoted my course more than they've promoted someone who's like lesser well known. So a lot of it I think has to do with just Chessable's like marketing team.
Choices, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think as also that's the other thing as we look into the future. You look at like the talents that are up and coming. If we're trying to increase the reach of chess, we're trying to make it much more commercially viable. It's going to be very important that the juniors, the kids who are up and coming these days, learn how to use social media. That they do sort of build a brand in a sense for themselves. It doesn't have to be like streaming completely, but even like Anish, for example, on Twitter, like he is putting out a lot of tweets. He's trying to raise his profile quite a bit. And I think for the juniors, as we go forward, that is going to be very, very important if we hope for sort of this chess boom to continue to some degree, because otherwise I have a feeling that once we get past the days of myself and Magnus and others, there's a very good chance that chess could essentially go back to where it was before, where the interest dries up simply because the top players are not household names and they're not very well known.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, no, the fans I think love that the top players started like tweeting a lot. Like you obviously, Anish, Magnus, like Fabi, he kind of started tweeting like last couple of years, like more recently. I think the fans like really enjoyed that. So yeah, I think that's absolutely huge for keeping the interest.
Yeah, seeing players in the confessionals and stuff. Like when I was younger, I had to take a plane to Wake on Zay to see a top player for the first time. Like I'd never, heard a top player talk about chess or seen them sit at a board and think and stuff. I mean, now we've got top players in the US, but back then, like in terms of world elite. And now you could be sitting at home and you can like hear what Hikaru was thinking during his game and after the game and everything. And that applies for, several other of the top players too. So
yeah, I mean, I think it's a very special time that we live in. I mean, for myself, the way that I generally look at things is that I think, maybe some people like chess.com won't be thrilled with me saying this, but I feel like we reached a peak in terms of like the pure like interest in chess. But I think the most important thing, at least from my perspective, is maintaining it where it's at and looking at all the different things that have happened over the last few years and trying to get people to do these things down the road so that, when the days of myself, when the days of Magnus are gone, that it does continue as is. And yeah, it's very special for people to be able to see that. I think also, one thing that I learned, I think in 2019, it's mostly by accident, of course, is that when I started streaming initially, of course, I was a pro chess player, very, very serious. I mean, definitely too serious, I would say, looking back on it now. And I mean, there's this thing, and you will see it amongst a lot of the top players still, where they tend to be very serious. You play it very, very close to the vest. So what I mean by that is you don't really show your personality much. You definitely don't talk about anything that was really important from your game. And I mean, I've given this example many times, but the most obvious example is Levan Aronian, the Armenian American Grandmaster. And if you watch his interviews very closely and you're say 2650 or above, and you look at his history of the games and you look at his comments and you match them up, there are many times where he'll say something that is just simply not true. He'll say like, oh, I looked at this, I forgot this line, a lot of these sorts of things, and it's simply not true. But when I started streaming in 2019, what I realized is that it's much more important to sort of open up. It's much more important to try and share that knowledge because really, I mean, if you think about it, yes, I was a top player. I have a career, maybe 5-10 more years, if that. But what about beyond that? Those secrets or, my knowledge, whatever I may have, that's not really going to be important to me. It's not going to serve any use for me down the road. And so I think that's sort of, it taught me when I started streaming in 2019 that you need to sort of open up. You need to share more of these insights. You need to be who you are. And when you do that, I think a lot of people can become very interested in chess in a different way than just watching the generic, boring interview after a game.